Well, hello everybody, this is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to Rattlecast. It's the biggest freewheeling live streaming poetry podcast on the planet, in your ear or on your laptop. This is episode number 288 with our guest tonight, Partridge Boswell, who'll be here in just a few minutes. But before we get, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all this because we love poetry. I know you do too, so please do click on the like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, whatever you can do, no matter what platform you're on. There's always some kind of review you can leave. There's some kind of thing you can share. There's some kind of thing you can click. The more things like that you do, the more poetry is spread around the interwebs, and the more people get to be enriched by it, and all our lives get better. And so you do your part by pushing something right now or later or whenever you do, but push stuff. Okay. Now, we start out with our Poet Respond poet, as we always do, and Malachy Moran is in Norway, and so could not be here. It's very late there, but I'm going to share this poem, and of course, this was the topic that so many people were writing about this week, the stock market and the tariffs and all that that's going on with that, really fraught times, of course, and Malachy says this about the poem. He says, I created this poem out of the cognitive dissonance I felt this week between the bursting beauty of spring and my own doom-scrolling death spiral. And I love the quiet beauty in this, the way it tackled this difficult topic with a lot of heart and a lot of sensitivity, too. So let's take a look at this poem. I'll give it a listen. This is Malachy Moran reading Chionodoxa, Do Not Understand Tariffs. Here we go.
Chionodoxa do not understand tariffs. I tried to explain to the flowers on the banks of Åkerselva that they honestly had chosen an awful time to sprout. I detailed all the nuance of international tariffs and suggested that they wait a bit to see how things shake out. They swayed with polite attention as I outlined my position on effects of the weakened dollar and the day's stock market rout, but I do not think they listened as they lifted heads defiant, or at least their azure petals did not betray their doubts.
And so it's today's poem of the day on Rattle.com. Malachy Martin reading Chionodoxa, Do Not Understand Tariffs. And of course, if you'd like to share a poem, if you have any poems about current events, all you have to do is go to rattle.com/page/respond. You can find the Poet Respond link there to submit yours. Submit it by midnight Friday night, and we'll get it in. We'll consider it for Sunday's poem. And sometimes we publish poems in the middle of the week, too, so don't hesitate to send them earlier as well or later. If you've got poems about something that just happened in the last week, that's what we do with Poet Respond, making poetry relevant every Sunday morning at least, if not more. So submit your poems there at the new rattle.com. Now we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Partridge Boswell. So sit tight, and we'll be right back with more poetry. And we're back. Like I said, today's guest is Partridge Boswell. Partridge is the author of the 2023 Fool for Poetry Prize-winning chapbook, Levis Corner House, and the Grolier Poetry Prize-winning collection, Some Far Country, which I have right here. Partridge is co-founder of Bookstock Literary Festival and teaches at Vallum Society for Education, Arts, and Letters in Montreal. He lives with his family in Vermont and troubadours widely with the poetry music group Los Lorcas, whose debut release, Late Night in America, is available on Thunder Ridge Records. And I've been really excited to talk to Partridge since a long time ago, hearing the first piece of poetry turned into music by Los Lorcas. Here he is, Partridge Boswell. Hey, Partridge, how you doing?
Hey Tim, doing great. Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's definitely my pleasure to have you on, and I have been fascinated with what you do with music and poetry. You were in the Musician Poets issue, and one of the poets, I think, that planted the seed for making that issue in the first place. So I'm really interested in talking about that later. But let's start with a poem, first of all.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get into the music further down the road. But meanwhile, I think this first poem that I'm going to give you is I couldn't have asked for a more perfect segue than actually the first poem that appeared, the Poets Respond poem, because it's practically on the same page. I wrote this poem a while ago, about 15 years ago or so, but sadly, it's more relevant than ever. It's called "Upon Mistaking Pressure for Pleasure," in a poem by Anne Carson. There is a certain kind of pressure in humans to take whatever is most beloved by them and smash it. Anne Carson. We thought of it as play, but in truth, our parents had no clue where we were or what we were doing. One path led to another. What little bread we had, we ate en route and left no crumbs so even birds would starve. Rip-rap, uneven and lethal, pies too narrow or wide, never matching our stride. Tracks so long they're chiasmus, singing mercy in both directions. What did we care if opposites were true? We knew where we were going, and there was no going through. The fear shunting us here, always only boxcars, 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 never people. We thought less and less. At first, we only wanted to see what would happen to the penny. Then everyone had their own penny minted with their own likeness. Soon, we were so rich, everyone wanted to see what would happen. It was like a sickness, but only like. Everyone liked their own likeness. Everyone liked owning their own likeness. Until all that kept us sane was a promise of disaster. We knelt and placed our ears to the rail, waited for the iron's faint ringing to grow real and unstoppable as a comet they said would never hit us, though it would take one to prove a penny is still worth saving.
Yeah, and that was Partridge Boswell reading Upon Mistaking Pressure for Pleasure in a poem by Anne Carson. And Partridge, I think of you, and I'm not, I get the impression over the years that you're a prolific poet. I don't know how true that is, but it feels like you write a lot. And is that true, first of all?
Sometimes more than others. At the moment, actually, I've shifted more toward music. We've been recording lately. So then, poetry takes a back seat, but yeah, I sure absolutely like to keep scribbling if I can.
Mm-hmm. So tell us the progression of becoming a poet and a musician. Like, did one come first, or did you fall in love with both simultaneously? And like, how old were you? Do you remember when you knew you wanted to be creative in this way?
Well, that's a really really good question. And I tried to answer that for a woman who stopped me after my very first gig I played in Ireland, and she assumed that I had that the music had emanated from the poetry, not the other way around. But I think I did have more of an initiation into the creative arts through music, more so than anything else, at a very young age. And of course, yeah, that just it 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 just continued and grew and has never left me. Poetry's been more of a more of a fickle thing, more of a sort of a wild thing that needed to be tamed. I was always curious, but wrote maybe a few poems in high school, which we all do, and then kind of left it behind for a while, and was part of a rock band in school for a few years. It lasted, and and was not writing poetry at all. And then I'd say what really tipped me into fully into poetry didn't come until I was in my mid 40s, and my wife died, and yeah, so and former poet laureate of Vermont, Chardonnay, like to ask all of his interviews, what hurt you into poetry? You know, rather I could say that, that's kind of what hurt me into poetry, how I really became immersed in poetry. Um, but but I like to think of it as more of a um, just just kind of what kind of loosened and what opened me to it, more than anything painful. Um, Denise Levertov talks about grief being a hole we walk around all day and then a night we fall into, and my question is always, well, then what do you do with the hole, and what happens to the hole, and what's in the hole, and is it a well, and does it nourish you, and or does it poison you, or and is it always with you? Does it ever get filled? And that's sort of, poetry to me since then has been sort of pitching questions into that hole, and trying to fill it, trying to understand its dimensions, and exactly what is in it. And I found there's a lot of stuff in there. It's huge, just a whole spectrum of emotions that are simultaneous. And there's a whole lot of appreciation. And I've come out of it, rather than writing elegies, writing sort of a love letters to the world, I like to call them. So that's that's the short of it. That's a long short of it. Yeah, and I could go on and on, but it did not happen. It did nearly simultaneously. It's always been a back and forth, and since then, poetry and music for me have been synchronous.
Mm-hmm.
I could say pretty clearly they've been one and the same, and they've been inseparable ever since.
Yeah, well, that is such an important question, really. What hurt you into poetry, as Chard Denard said, who we published in Rattle too, and it is so true. Like, there's something, I don't know if it necessarily has to be hurt, but it's something that we have to reconcile that drives us into creating art, I think, because art's the way we figure things out that we can't really wrap our heads around in like a rational, traditional sense. So that makes a whole lot of sense. But why poetry and not music, primarily? In the issue, we talked to Ani DeFranco, and I asked her, like, why is she not a poet? Why did she, work in music and get her express herself in song lyrics instead of poems? And even though she mixes both, and so much was the collaboration of it and the immediate feedback, and that, which is a different thing than most people say. But what for you? Why was it poetry and not just pouring yourself into songwriting instead?
The opportunities didn't exist, I think, here. We live in, rural Vermont. There's not a whole lot of opportunities to collaborate, even though there should be, obviously. And poetry and the poetry community seem more accessible here. And as I said, before when we were chatting earlier, that there are more poets here per capita than they were in the country, and they're under every rock. And I already knew some poets here, and I guess that's part of it. It's part of the community, but that it was a possible thing to do. Yeah, and just it's just a matter of building confidence too. I hadn't done a lot of performing on my own musically, so that was it was a big leap. And as I think Ani mentioned in your brilliant interview with her, she talked about identity and having to choose, between the two and have to hone one or the other and not both. And there's, it's almost like they're mutually exclusive, but we know otherwise. Those of us who've gotten into both deeply. So yeah, there's uh, I I like to think that we're not we're not as defined as as people label us. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
It's um, that I know that doesn't really answer your question, but yeah. The evolution has been it's been back and forth and back and forth, and one moment it is um, hugely gratifying to uh, to be a poet, and certainly being awarded the Grolier Prize for my first book, and when that came out, and the hoopla around that made me feel like, yeah, it's okay, I'm a poet now. But um, some reason that wasn't enough, and I got into that question, just exactly, why poetry is so powerful. And for me, poetry's another slow dawning epiphany that, lo and behold, it's because of the music that that's at its source.
Mm-hmm.
So once it's almost like I gave myself permission that I could also be a musician and a poet at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though there are very few templates for that out there, very few people who've done it and acknowledged that, yeah, I'm both, even though I don't have a term for it. I love to do both, and whether one's commodified or the other doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's both gratifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is. Let's hear another poem before we talk some more. I think we have Ode to a
Sure.
Bee on the Small of Your Back next. And there's some
Yeah,
music just in
sure.
that title you can hear.
Yeah. And in fact, this is also a song. So a Los Lorcas song. So Ode to a Bee on the Small of Your Back. Blind to what tickles the delta of nerves there, you rub a humming with the back of your hand, surprised by the soft pulse of a drowsy bee that somehow hitched a ride on your chambray shirt. When a moment ago you went outside barefoot in cool October dew to kiss your love goodbye through her driver's side window, beside late rugosas that waited till now to speak, each petal speckled with 100 glistening tears of sunlight. Winter still counties away, larkspur fooled by recent heat into blooming again. The meadow rue still tall, its edges only beginning to tinge like an iconic actor with a full bucket list of roles to grain to. The garden and hive you tend for another, thriving these 6 years, or is it 7 now, since she left? Easy to lose count with sun's wheel, grinding memories smooth as it fades needles and leaves. Easy to see numbers for what they are, cold and stunningly meaningless as stars. Easy to say winter would have killed him anyway, as you bend and lift him from the kitchen floor with a spoon.
Yeah, beautiful poem. That was Ode to a Bee on the Small of Your Back by Partridge Boswell. Also a Los Lorcas song. And, when you say that the poem is going to be a song, so many people anticipate it being, repetitive refrains and choruses and not a free verse poem with the natural music of speech at its heart. And so how do those poems come to be songs at the same time? And how do you shape that? I had in college a friend of mine, Jenny Weiss, was a pianist, and she would used to take my poems and turn them into songs. I don't know how she did it. Like, it was very confusing to me. But how does the a poem like this, a free verse poem, become a song? How do you manage that and structure it?
Well, I mean, I think you begin with whether or not it feels like it's set, it's verbatim and it's set in its form and it's set word for word. Um, and some poems just naturally lend themselves to that. They're just naturally lyrical, and they can hold their own. And some, I mean, to me, I hear lines, phrases that need to come back and need that repetition, and the repetition doesn't hurt. And it's just, and again, coming at it openly, just um, being attuned to that original music. And it isn't something, at least it isn't something that I always hear right off. We hear it in the moment, of course, when we're creating it, when we're writing the poem. The music is there, but then it's almost like we lose it. It doesn't stick, because we're revising it, and then it's finally set. But then for me, I'll go back, and it usually doesn't. That music doesn't come through to me until I've been with it a while, and it's been who knows, weeks, months, years before, and multiple repetitions of orally hearing the poem, hearing the cadence, hearing the emphasis, hearing the assonance and dissonant, or the consonants, and yeah, even the dissonance in there as well. Hearing the harmonies, hearing the rhymes, hearing the concepts that are rhymed in the poem, as Matthew Zapruder likes to say, and just being open to hearing that original music, I guess, and then making those decisions. You're almost, sometimes it does feel like you're rewriting the poem, and in order to make that music come forward even more. So we do get refrains, we do get verse and chorus occasionally, but very often I really enjoy it when the poem sits, it stays in its finished form, the way it was on the page. And it's it's a really cool coincidence when that happens, and it does happen frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be possible, but everybody on the both YouTube and Facebook are asking if it's possible to play some of it as a song, and we see the guitars behind you. I don't know if the audio will allow it, but
well, I'd love to. Is my answer to that. Yeah, and I'm happy to give it a go. But my experience with Zoom has been a little bit spotty, and yeah, so I don't want to offend anyone, but yeah, sure. It's we could try it later when there's one that has done just that, naturally come into its own.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, let's do that.
Song.
It is with the Zoom. It's it filters out for voice, which is the problem. So picking up the music is a little difficult for it sometimes with its algorithms. But yeah. So tell us about the Los Lorcas and how that band came to be, and how, because it's two poets, I think, right, and a third musician, and so it's a trio with a lot of poetry going on. So how did the group form, and how does that work?
Yeah, there's a lot of poetry going on, and we've actually picked up a fiddler as well. So now there are four of us. Yeah, it's getting crowded up there, but it started very simply when I was reading, was kind of launching that first book, the first collection, Some Far Country, and I thought I had. I hadn't really put many poems to music, or even as music as a background to poems myself, and but I had worked with groups that had done that. I in a former life I presented Mark Kelly Smith, the slam poetry founder, and Patricia Smith as well. They both had ensembles. And thought what they were doing with music and their own poetry was very cool. And when they thought, well, why not give it a go? So I knew a guitarist who went to Berkeley, and he could play just about anything you put in front of him, and we collaborated for a number of those readings from that first book, and picked and choose which poems would lend themselves to what music, and so it was more of that matching up. It wasn't really honoring the I like to call the original music of the poem, but it was sort of having at least that musical element to some of them, and it seemed to work. And then we just deepened it and broadened it and went along, and uh, yeah, it just morphed over time to we just learning more and more. Then setting other poets' work to music, or finding what we thought was close to the original music, and that as well. Adding in a few covers here and there of poets who also happen to be musicians. Um, so, in other words, very gifted lyricists as well as singers and musicians. Whose work we respected, and so it's this set list that's grown in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's really interesting. And the next poem we have up, Heckler, sort of goes along. It's in a really interesting way about what we've been talking about, because it's a really fascinating poem on the page, which everybody will see in a second. There's a poem within the poem, and then also a sort of a golden shovel, but backwards and original. And then also, it's about a heckler, which has to do with the music part too. So it's sort of, we can hear, the music in multiple ways, and how it wouldn't work on the stage. Like, this is the kind of thing that you couldn't perform orally in any way and get the whole poem out, because you have to show that visually, as you did here, which is interesting. Do you want to read Heckler?
Sure enough, yeah, I will, and I appreciate this particular format, because you can you can't see it as well as hear it. So it does work in this case, I like to think. Sure. After this poem is after Anais Nin and Leonard Cohen. Heckler. And naturally, I had no choice but to holler, "Hey, you in the back!" Then the whole audience woke and cringed. So I focused. "No, not you. The one beside you who thinks he's not cracked like the rest of us. Today is your lucky day. I hate to break it to you, especially since you came here to dissipate in the crowd. Don't take it too hard, but when surfaces craze, chances are their truth aches to amaze us. The last cracks I saw like that, hands chalk them to lower the risk of slipping. No doubt you assumed you were safe back there to chill with the shy kids and slackers. You'd just phone surf and remain semi-conscious without getting called on or out, hanging tight with the silence. But hey, now's your shot to have your say in public, and tweet it too. Cast off and sing in your sinking. A chance to join the leaky boats of our stories full of holes. Listen, bud, don't expect your neighbor next to you to save you. This rift was no one's fault line but your own. A mirror won't tell you any more than a blackmailed sycophant. Only you know where it got painful, as it shroomed into every dark room of you more predictably than a Marvel script, awaiting the day you'd crack wide open and let the light shine in undimmed. What's that? You've heard that old asterisk lyric before? Some crackpot troubadour in a black fedora? It must be true then. Forget the stitches and glue, that stuff dentist took hours shellacking your teeth with. It's a war you can't win or lose. To reiterate, here's a hammer. You know what to do. And BT Dubs, that blossom of light inside you, it needs a way to get out too. Which is an allusion, of course, to the Leonard Cohen song anthem, where there's a line, everything has a crack in it, that's how the light gets in. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
And then, of course, we have the acrostic from Anais Nin at the beginning. if you read the first words in each stanza, in each line. And then the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom.
Yeah, so beautiful poem there. That was Heckler, by, of course, Partridge Boswell. And so we talk a lot about the music of poetry, and what does that mean to you? Music has a certain definition, and so often it includes harmony, and pitch and the way melody moves together, and beat and things like that, which of course are not there in spoken word. And so how do you define what is the music of poetry?
Mm. I like to think of it in broader terms, because I do see poetry in everything. I do experience poetry in anything, and I do, I see. I think you said in your essay, poetry on the subconscious. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said something about the poem not existing on the page, and that's true for me, and that opens things up to poetry being accessible, everywhere. Sources of inspiration for poetry are everywhere, all around us. And yeah, I guess the music I like to think of as there's an old Irish story about what the best, what conjures the best sound, what's the most pleasing sound, the most um, maybe ecstatic sound to the ear, and these people who were talking had an argument over and went back and forth about what sounded most pleasing, and they finally settled on um, the answer of the music of what happens. And I guess I like to think of poetry, the music of poetry in those terms, rather than sort of the craft terminology that we get. I'm very happy to get in deep with craft, and I do that sometimes in workshops, because I think a lot of poets these days aren't necessarily working with a very deep understanding of what all the elements are and what's going on in the poem, and they're just doing it unconsciously. So that I have to give credence to that. I would do that sooner than say, well, study a book on craft and study your, pair that up with music theory and see where the Venn diagram comes out on that. I'm much more happy to say, oh, that's the music of what happens. Yeah.
So how, your poems, you've read 3 so far, and they're full of, internal rhyme and assonance and attention to that and to the rhythms that we sort of naturally produce. How aware of that are you as you're writing? Is there a sort of a heightened way to encounter the music within a poem that you're pushing for? Or is it something that's just completely unconscious and you're in the mode of poetry and it comes out that way?
Yeah, it is the latter. It's in the moment. It's some moods and moments lend themselves to music, and some are, it's easier to hear that music. When we're not distracted, it's a challenge. Even where we live in a very quiet rural place, the world is so full of distractions and cacophony these days. But that's when it's most accessible to me. And yeah, it isn't a real conscious thing. You go from thought to thought, line to line, and just that alignment, that association is creating music that you're unaware of.
Yeah. Do you read out loud as you write? Is that part of getting the music down on the page? I used to only write reading out loud, and now it's just so much in my head that I don't like anymore. But it's sort of like the same. You go through the same motions as if you're reading out loud, and it's like you find like the movement in a song, like a melody even, and you need to repeat those notes or that. See, I don't really know much about music. Like I play the guitar a little bit, but not really, and so like keys and things like that. But it's like you find the key for the poem almost, and then you're like, once you have that, but until you find the right key for it, it's like wrong or something.
Yeah,
Does
very
that
true.
make sense?
It does make sense. Yes, absolutely. I don't think I've thought of it in that those terms before, but yeah, it is in certain keys. Um, and yeah, again, it's that um just leaving yourself open to yeah, just because you hear one key doesn't mean you're it's not going to be uh, interrupted, or it's isn't going to bleed into some other kind of start in a major key, you'll find yourself in a minor key at the end of uh, a stanza, um, or you'll encounter some dissonance if a thought goes awry or something. I don't know.
hmm There's another thing
Yeah,
too that I feel, especially like editing poems, like workshopping other people's poems, or if like you can't find the right ending to your own poem. But there's a way, even though I know nothing about music, I know like which note the song should end on. Like there's like a completion that I like some part of my brain understands that I don't. If you end on the wrong note, like it feels wrong. And there's a way in a poem where like you're leading into the last few line, or the last sentence or the last utterance, and then it goes in the wrong, it hits the wrong note. And like,
sure.
do you have any like thoughts about what
Yeah.
that might be?
I think it's just repetition. I think it's just the way we absorb music. We've been listening to music all our lives, ever since we were kids, very small kids in infancy, even before in the womb. And we know we anticipate
Mm-hmm.
um what's coming, what could come, and we anticipate endings. We're really
Mm-hmm.
good at anticipating endings. We're also good at avoiding endings, but um yeah, but we know what's inevitable, and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's just over time, just absorbing song after song after song we've heard during our lives that
Yeah, yeah, it is such a strange thing. 'Cause it's like you can be reading a poem and then you can hear like, okay, this needs like a dot 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 dot. Like I don't know how else to express it, but there's like
yeah,
this
yeah,
little like run of things that it needs. And music is the same way too. Like you sort of the pattern has been established and it needs to be finished to balance out or something. And if I guess if you listen to music a lot, which we all do, but I guess maybe don't read enough poems to hear it as often. There's a question Jeff Stumpo wanted to ask. He said, Heckler shows you're not just thinking in terms of musicality, but in terms of the physicality of verse. And he says, what are some poems you've written or read that blend all your concerns well? And so how do you think of blending those, just more generally, maybe too?
blending just all the elements you mean different
Yeah,
poetic
the
elements, I guess.
physicality with the
Yeah,
music in
yeah,
particular. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, good question. Excellent question. I think actually the next poem that we have queued up is a really good answer to that. Because in a way it's a formal poem. Uh, it's it's structured a little bit like, actually, I like to think of it as a church or a chapel. Um, but and the words are reverberating within that space.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's so many different possibilities when you're looking at that blank page. And I like to think of the page sometimes as the venue, and so you're filling that white space venue with um, with different notes, and and the acoustics work differently for different poems, and we've there can be a really spare poem, even haiku, or or something that's, skipping several lines. The letting between the lines is enormous, and the lines are long, or the lines are really short, or they're alternating lines, and they all work differently acoustically within that white space. Um, I think that has something to do with it when you're pouring it out on the page. If you're just, if you're writing it by hand, it doesn't reveal itself. But then you have the opportunity to set it on the page, and that's something that's kind of actually neat. As much as I prefer poetry as an oral thing, it's an oral art, oral and oral. I do enjoy the sort of the architecture of a poem, the acoustic architecture of a poem on a page, as well as organizing that. So maybe starts to get at what he was asking. But
Yeah, I think it does. Why don't you go ahead and read that poem you mentioned, Upon Hearing
okay,
Amy Winehouse?
sure, sure, pleasure. Upon hearing Amy Winehouse at St. James Church in Dingle, grief without song could be any stone chapel built of loss, packed with aging villagers lulled reticent as rue by a rope bell's tongue, hemmed by iron gates and a yew tree lurking mirthlessly beside a burial ground where moss patinaed saints and earth angels gather round relic icons of threadbare hand-me-down faith. You sit, kneel, stand on your misericord, and Eton Job and the organ belly's drone, sorting your parents' hoarded aggregate. Clothes, pawn, and charity shops won't take. Sewing kits, boxes of old Polaroids, of anonymous sepia people you wouldn't be here without, file drawers of past taxes, uniforms from the war, wedding dress, unworn shoes unfit for a holy soul, and that's just the tip to say nil of unspeakable sins in attic and basement. Macular shorebirds scan whitecaps for questions the mind's eye can light. Dim synapse of a candlelit nave, musted kneelers, a deacon's chair from Suriname, grief without pain, grief without song is wasted pain. According to patron James, faith in words, in real acts of creation, amplifies our part in salvation soundtrack louder than wafers, wine, or words of mumbled expiation dissolved on penitent tongues. In your rusted anechoic husk, your veins blood thrum a rushing river hymn, an electric fence of nerves ticking in your cerebellum until silence clears its throat. And from her first chthonic tremolo, it comes as no shock. How from Galway to Summerhill, churches are being repurposed as concert halls by clergy who swear love's lost call note still lingers, runic under the moored murmur of all those services you sat unmoved through. The supernal flatulence of organ bellows at last revised, infidelity rare as a black velvet angel with spindly legs and mental hair, her aqueous blues beguiling as the B-side of prayer, beside an ocean we couldn't hear, but always knew was there.
Yeah, another beautiful, is rich with sounds and language and image. That was Upon Hearing Amy Winehouse at St. James Church in Dingle by Partridge Boswell. And I wonder, there's so much music, and we keep talking about music. One of the things I think about poems on the page is like sheet music for the way that you should say. When people ask me like where the line break should be, it's kind of like saying, well, there's like measures. There's a certain length you want to get the right rhythm, and you should be able to hand the poem to any speaker of English, and they can read the poem in a similar way that you would. And I think that's like the goal of it's like the sheet music of the song. It's not really the poem. The poem is in your body and the breath entering that person who's reading it. But the poem on the page has to somehow recreate that for somebody who can just like sit there and play, like I can't, like sight read music and just play something. So how is that something that you're really conscious of? Does it come first as a sound and then you're translating that for the page so that it can be reproduced? Do you think of it like that?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. There's a certain, I mean, when it is for the sound, it's strictly for the sound, I think. More so than the meaning, certainly. And again, when I'm handwriting it, the line lengths and breath, um, they don't that's not as much of a concern as when I'm transferring it to say the computer and putting it actually in a form and saying, sometimes when you're handwriting, you already know you already kind of guess what kind of form it's going to be in, but maybe something similar to what you're used to working in. But I think, line length dictates uh, so much of the music of the poem, I think, the experience of the poem, at least on the page. You can fudge that, you can uh, fiddle around with it as you're reading it, as you're memorizing it, and then as you present it, if you're reciting it. But yeah, it's like line length. To me, there you have to think about the correspondence between the line length and the natural breath. And supposedly at one time, um, pentameter kind of approximated the length of a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in our accelerated age, our very wordy age of information, we've kind of lengthened that to fit in as many syllables as possible, right, in one line. So it's probably out to like 16. It's probably uh, another 16 or 17 syllables long, something else now. But so maybe longer lines work.
Yeah, that's okay. That's something I never
I
really
don't know.
thought of, but we do. As somebody who talks too fast.
Yeah.
It's yeah, maybe we need to be writing in hexameter instead of pentameter now or something. Um, let me see. So if anybody has any questions, I should say, for Partridge, leave them in the chat windows either on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll pass any along like we did before with Jeff. If you put question there at the start of your question, I can see it's a question much easier as I scroll back, so that helps. Also, if you haven't clicked the like button yet, please do click the like button. There's always twice as many people watching as have clicked like. And if the like to viewer ratio really matters for things appearing on the sidebar, so click like if you haven't yet. But I want to make sure we got to get to more poems, Partridge. Let's do Ode to an Invasive Species next.
All right. Happily. Ode to invasive species. You'll need a cement jaw, gloves of thick raw hide, and bomb-proof canvas pants. A sharp spade, maybe a pick to prise soil loose around the base. A mild day after a night of rain to soften their resolve. An intolerant epithet or two to remind them who owns the sun and rain. The nutrient-rich loam here merely on loan. Loppers alone won't do. You need to grab low, yank and wrench, maybe even dig before roots unscrew their tapered lengths from rhizomatic depths. Lukewarm and dark as the womb of a circuit, who consents to birth but not to motherhood. You'll need a uniform conservation corps of eager, unformed youth who won't connect the green sweat of just another summer job with an angry mob's generic objective, who will hear in their names only the thorn and buckthorn, the strife and loose strife, the knot and knotweed, suck and honeysuckle, the Russian and Russian olive, false and false indigo, the heaving tree of heaven. Access to a 24/7 news channel might help, but since your genocide's low tech, all you really need is the hook of a melody's veiled invective, catchy as Sweet Home Alabama, where kudzu runs more rampant than whatever genus crooned the land back to sleep after the Centennial Exposition, where the miraculous new plant from Japan was first introduced, along with the telephone and typewriter and their unborn progeny of devices that are now more endemic than air.
Yeah, well, that was really cool to hear sung. That was Ode to Invasive Species. And that's the kind of thing I was talking about with my friend Jenny back in the day. She would do that. And I'm like, where do you get the melody from for that and the rhythm? It's so fascinating to hear. And everybody loved listening to it that way. So do you usually perform your poems that way with the band? Or do you sometimes do it more spoken? What's the mix of that?
Yeah, it varies. It starts as as something spoken, obviously, but then it does find its melody, and or the melody finds it. So uh, when they evolve fully, they 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 just get more musical, more melodic. It's the only way I can describe it. That actually was a version of the melody. It wasn't the true melody. That was sort of a no man's land between the spoken version and the song itself. But I'm glad people took to that. But yeah, it's an evolution, like all things, and like I think any songwriter will tell you, any musician will tell you that the songs change over time, even from the time that they're recorded to the time that they continue to be performed live, and by the time that they've, years down the road, when somebody else picks them up and plays them as covers, and somebody else covers them to the extent that they become their songs, instead of the original songwriter songs, that evolution, it continues. And so people hear other, they hear other melodies and form them different ways.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of when we had Robert Pinsky on, because the way he does it, and I want to talk about memorizing poems too, but he has them sort of memorized and he sort of riffs at the same time. So if you go back and watch that episode, I think it was like around 100 or so, the poems never matched what was on the page. Like he would, and it sounded fine the way he did it, but he would like move around different stanzas and like do lines differently and just like roll with it. And that's really fun
That's
to
what you
see.
get with a
Yeah.
That's what you get with a jazz musician. He's a saxophonist himself. But yeah, we had a great time playing with Robert a few years ago here in Woodstock. It was a real joy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's just great. But about for performing poems, do you find there's a way to deliver that connects with an audience the best? I mean, one of the things like we talked about already, and we know poetry is such an oral tradition. That's really where it lives. And yet we're really as poets kind of bad at presenting our poems orally, which is such a strange conundrum. And maybe poetry would be more popular if we perform them better. And yet we get in there's this heightened way of like sort of, there's this poet speak that you kind of do sometimes that gets just like kind of full of itself or something and turns people off too. You want to like find a connection. I don't know. How do you find the best way to present a poem is? And I know you could say it's different for every poem, but like in general, like,
That's
is there a way to approach engaging with an audience through just reading a poem?
that's an excellent question. Yeah, and I think and it varies from poetries. Of course, there's an intensity to spoken word that is expected and anticipated as well. Yeah, I think it has to do that the loss of the orality of poem, the musicality of poem. It all kind of corresponds to academia and publishers taking control of that art form and becoming more, to their credit, making it far more widely disseminated, but still sort of imprisoned on the page, instead of in the body, in our bodies. So um, being able to deliver that to an audience is a whole different thing. To take it off the page and give it something that's accessible,
Hmm.
uh, make it into something accessible. And I've had I've had a uh, great enjoyment working with workshops doing page to stage, where some have never presented their work, certainly never their poetry,
Hmm.
live in front of people, and found it wildly liberating. And so I'm wondering why more poets don't don't take that challenge and and do it and even incorporate music. So, but I can understand how it's daunting because it does present some challenges, and and you know we're just so um, commodified with things. That's we're in we're in our boxes, in our lanes, and very hard for people. So what I mean, initially when we started performing for a very long time, I was sure to remind our audiences that everything they hear tonight in this concert is a poem. And I think that was kind of astonishing to some people. Um, I think more recently, more people who have been attending our concerts kind of get what we do. Before it was a little bewilderment, and it took a while before I understood. Oh yeah, okay, so right, this is you are actually yeah, this is a music concert. It's not just poetry. It's not just spoken word. It's not um, and at the same time, well, it is poetry. So um, and I find that symbiosis is and the connection with the audience, the ease of the connection with the audience. It's there's n no place that it's happened more fluidly and naturally than when we've toured in Ireland,
Hmm.
which we're going to be doing again in a couple months. People just automatically get that.
Hmm.
You can be playing what appears to be sort of a set of musical set, and then just stop and read a few poems, and you won't the folks there in the pub won't even skip a beat. So it's part of their culture. It's a natural thing. Poetry and music are they're in the same uh, the exact same place with them. So
Hmm.
yeah, hopefully that begins to get at your question. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's hear another poem next. I think Sam was next up.
Yeah, Psalm, um, which was in that issue with the musicians. Um, Psalm after Mr. T. Words, sounds, speech, men, memory, thought, fears, and emotions, time, all related, all made from one. John Coltrane. I pity the tongues of those for whom cilantro tastes like soap. Pity the bruisers and galoots who got sucked so easily into Ali's rope-a-dope. I pity the fear that finds rest solely in a mirror's graven mug, never its ashen creosote. Pity the solipsist for whom love's assimilation will always be an asymptote. I pity ears that won't sync mercy's words and music, thought's vibration with a sung note. I pity the indigent soul with nothing but hollow-boned birdsong to build its levees and bridges of hope. Pity the soloist convinced we're born to live and die alone. I pity the fool who listens to a love supreme and hears a saxophone.
Yeah, so that was Sam, and that was the from issue number 85 of Rattle, that tribute to musicians. And you can hear in that, what we were talking about before, where you find the melody, and then the melody is what you're sort of chasing is the music of the poem. That I pity the tongues of those for whom cilantro tastes like soap. And everything is sort of a riff and, and a variation on that sort of feel of that line. I think that's a good example of how, what we're talking about when we talk about music within poetry. We haven't really talked about what your writing process is like yet, Partridge. How often do you write? You mentioned early on, that sometimes it's music, sometimes it's writing, and they come and go. But how do you approach the blank page? Do you wait for inspiration to come? Is there some process like that? And how many drafts? Like, what is your writing process like?
Okay, I was dreading that question, but I'll try my best if I have a process at all. But before we leave Psalm completely, I just want to thank you for this opportunity because it somehow has inspired me. That poem is, I mean, you could, I guess it could be reclassified as a song as of this week. I just turned it into, it found its music.
Oh, very
So,
cool.
and I'm excited about it. So it'll be on our next album.
Oh, that's great. That's neat.
But as for the process, um, oh, that's a good one. Well, I mean, there's a lot to be said for ritual, and I do try to write at the beginning of every day uh, something. It doesn't always work that way, life happens, and uh, I I don't then try to make that up, later in the day. What's lost is lost. Um, in terms of the sort of the quietude, the um, that pause, that very deep concentration that the poem often requires. Um, uh, on the other hand, it does come. It does come at odd times. The need to write, the urge to write, sort of like Ruth Stone would describe in her poem about a wild horse galloping across a pasture, and you've got to get inside and get your pad and set it down before the horse escapes. And um, that happens at times too. More often, it's in fits and starts, and feast and famine, and you just I kind of take it when it comes. Even despite the ritual, there are times that are just more conducive to longer periods that are more conducive to poems, and sometimes you'll write what you think is a poem, and in the very early hours, and that will um, then lead to something else a little bit later, and then inadvertently, surprise you. A few hours later, you're driving somewhere and you say, "Oh, right, okay." So then you got to pull over and write another poem. So, and that's fantastic. That's rarely happens, but sometimes it does, and when it does, you have to seize it. And I I guess I'm grateful. Occasionally we'll either do a self-induced or sort of more uh, formally constructed retreat where I have a longer period of time to create, and um, that um, can work. Again, the environment's pretty important to me. Um, some places and some situations are just more conducive to it than others. Um,
Hmm.
that said, and it isn't always poetry either. So it could be essays. And so I guess maybe the number one thing I forgot to say about my personal process is that when I sit down and write, it isn't necessarily a poem. It isn't necessarily anything. It's
Hmm.
just writing.
Hmm.
It could be anything. And I've actually started having some this is a surprise side gig. It turns out I'm also a flash fiction writer, so which I didn't anticipate ever doing or being. So it could easily be a poem. It could easily be a piece of flash fiction. It could be an essay, and 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 it could be it could be all of those things. Uh, that the form isn't nearly as important as, again, the music. And just being true to that music, hearing that music, and getting it down, whenever that happens to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're there's not that much time left, but you have two poems left. Let's do like a quick hit of let's do one poem, quick question, and then the last poem. Let's close it out that way.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Um, yeah. So this is one I would do to music if we had that time, but I won't. I'll just read it.
Well,
Papa
actually,
Wheelie.
wait. Everybody wants to hear some music. Let's just do. Why not? And actually,
Yeah.
do you know how to change the audio settings on if you go to click on the audio button and you go to that little caret, then you can go to audio
Yep.
settings, and if you turn off, where is it? Where is it? I don't usually do this. There's a there's a thing that says like raw, keep it raw in the audio. I can't find it on mine though. Oh yeah, original sound for musicians. Yeah, it's on Zoom with background noise removal under audio profile, and turn it to original sound for musicians, and then that should be able to pick up the guitar.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah, so you go to audio, then audio settings on the little caret by the microphone.
Yep.
Yeah. And then under audio profile, it says original sound for musicians.
Hmm. I'm not seeing it on my screen, but
Okay.
microphone array, speaker.
Well, if not, we can just try it how it is, but that's the
Yeah, you would think I would have experimented with this. Oh, wait. Okay, sorry. Um, Spatial audio voice. Some original sound
yeah, there you
for
go, original
musicians.
sound. Yep.
Okay,
Okay, let's see.
you give it a try? Okay.
Partridge, I think it's filtering it out actually. Dang it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't hear it.
Yeah, we couldn't hear it. Oh well.
Okay.
It was worth a shot.
Well, I appreciate you. Yeah, it's worth a shot. Okay, well, all I can say is you're just gonna have to come hear us live.
Or buy the album. Don't forget that.
Or buy the album, right? Sure enough. From oil dank bowels of a nightmare garage, you ride benighted. Saturday morning's acolyte, sleep dazed but aright. Straight for the ramp you built last night in your driveway. In homage to the great, adrenaline hazed Evil Knievel, archetype for every danger boy and boneheaded troglodyte bent on a bright schematic, vying to break more bones than the Guinness World Record, flying prone over cars, buses, lions, fountains, sharks, canyons, rattlesnakes, before the neighborhood wakes. Topping the slope, you rev your banana bike and pedal hard on the approach, past a hushed gang of squirrels and robins holding their breath, half hoping this levitation will and won't be your last. Did he always wear stars and stripes? Was his helmet screwed on tight? Will his next attempt be televised? If he succeeds and fails yet again to reach light, devil dared and fair warned, you wicked as advertised off a wood plank, sailing headlong over fame's Colosseum into your first kiss and beer and Eucharist, your first dorm room farewell and first rock concert at the Orpheum, your body's first chemistry experiments and first storm of contrite indignation shadowing your first arrest, your firstborn silence like a warm ghost, your island that formed in a widening ocean when your first greyhound pulled away from the curb, taking a friend, more than a friend, inevitable as the first long gaze that followed, soaring through every stunt since, angling for the abyss, realizing too late your trajectory's off by an inch, and this is going to hurt. You brace yourself for that embrace.
Another beautiful poem that was Papa Wheelie. And love the singing in there too again by Partridge Boswell. So I wanted to ask one more thing about memorizing poems, because you do that as a musician, of course. Is there any advice or tricks you have to doing that? Because it is such a great way to engage the audience better and to feel your poems more with your body if you don't have to be reading from a book. So many poetry readings were just like, staring at the book, and it really isn't conductive to that connection. And I really think poets should memorize their poems more. I haven't. When I was, my first book came out years and years ago, I did enough readings where I'd like memorize all the poems just naturally. And I sort of wish, if I did readings, I would read enough to do that now. But is there any advice you have for memorizing poems, or is there a way that you do that, or any, because it is a big step to try too, because you worry about stumbling and messing something up and then throwing your whole thing off. Is there any advice, just if anybody wants to try memorizing poems more as they read,
Sure.
That you could give people?
Absolutely. Great question. I would give the same advice I'd give to someone who wants to memorize a song is you got to love it. You absolutely have to love it through and through. If you're going to internalize it and make it part of you, you you got to love it enough to go back to it again and again and again. And that's all it is. It's just repetition. Mm-hmm. You'll know when, you can be off book, off script with a poem or with a song. But it just takes time, and it takes the same words over and over again. Mm-hmm. In all sorts of different contexts. Yeah. So that when you do it publicly, it's in you. It just comes out. That's all. But you got to love it. You can't. There's no substitute for that. You can't go and try to memorize something that you're only half-hearted about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think it's maybe why, audiences respond so favorably when you do. Like, it's a sign, like, I've put in this is actually so meaningful to me that I remember it, And we live in such a throwaway kind of culture that, that it's not something you see every day anymore. And so I think it is great. I think it'd be great advice for people to try to, your favorite poems, if they mean a lot to you, why not say them out loud enough that you can just say them? I think is a good way to go. Well, let's close out with one last poem. We have the Superpower as the last one.
Right. The Superpower. And the youngsters above all tormenting them with dreams of justice on earth. To swab Miłosz. It starts innocently enough, waiting for dinner to live up to the boast of its aroma. Teleportation, invisibility cloak, the ability to fly, our young waxwing all but shouts. I'd have speed so fast I could turn back the clock, his brother sallies, sinking his mind's meteoric veerings now that he's off Ritalin. What about you, they ask. What superpower would you have? Russia, I tease. but they don't laugh and leave me crouched in a fetal ball beneath my school desk, ears cupped to muffle a siren's wail. Thumbs. I'd settle for thumbs. They don't want to hear from Darwin or Nietzsche. They want my own real POV, an honest answer on a serious subject. I'm fumbling around in a box of blue-tip matches the gods let us steal as a consolation for celestial passion. The tip flares, and instantly, boys are my age, and I'm trying to parse for them wisdom from lies. What would do the most good and least harm? Saying sorry for all I felt and haven't said? Would I want to die again and again and come back each time more grateful than the last? Didn't Hendrix say, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, then the world will know peace? Or was that Lennon? Either way, it was definitely Yoko, who said, a dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality. I could be Orpheus, able to warm the coldest stone with a few notes, to lift the lowest among us, or sing anyone down off their loftiest ledge with a hit so heart-rending it reminds us we were loved once and will love again. A music so strong it sucks the in out of inhumanity, voicing what we're capable of, drowning out disappointment's self-fulfilling loop of canned music. But which Orpheus? The one before or after he finds a minor key? Or after he's torn apart? I strike another match and light a candle. They're hungry, so we tuck in around the table, drawn by the surging urge Icarus felt as he soared toward the light that conjured us, our capes and masks draped over the backs of our chairs. Here we are. This is us. The tender, peppery leaves of rocket, croutons crispy yet soft. I know, but don't say what power I wouldn't want to see into their futures. Our hands are open and empty. Our plan, a scrap of light we keep in our pocket. Which superpower? Here's a hint. There's only one.
Yeah, that was The Superpower by Partridge Boswell. Partridge, thanks so much for being a guest. So fun talking about all these topics today and sharing the music of your poems with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me, Tim. And again, and if I could just add, thank you for everything you do for poets and poetry lovers. It's considerable, and I certainly do appreciate it for one. This one poet, we all do. Thanks for doing all you do with Rattle. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Well, it's definitely all my pleasure. Thanks, Partridge. Yeah, it's Partridge Boswell, and you can find all of the albums we talked about, more of Partridge's poetry at loslorcas.com. It's probably the best website to go. That's LOSLORCAS.com. Find the band, see if they're playing in your neck of the woods sometime, too. That would be fun, and check out their album. And, of course, Partridge's other books, too, Some Far Country, the recent chapbook, and other books, too. And, find that at loslorcas.com. All right, now we're going to take a quick break and go to our prompt lines. And the prompt for this week was to write a poem that includes a prank and ends with a question. So that is your prompt for this week. Should you choose to, or have you chosen to do it? Only this prompt this week is what we're looking at. It's the prompt lines for the current prompt. You can submit it, of course, all the way up until the end of April for prompt poem of the month. Now, it's a one-page max for the prompt lines. You can write longer poems and submit them, but we got to get to everybody. Also, we're shooting for about 3 minutes max on camera, so if you've got a longer poem that fills up the whole page with long lines, just jump right in. If you've got a short one, feel free to chat a little bit about it too. Now, if you have a poem to share, email your poem to promptlines@rattle.com. That's promptlines, all one word, at rattle.com, so I can show the poem on the screen, and then find the Zoom link, which I'm about to deploy on Facebook and YouTube, and join the Zoom, but only if you have a poem you'd like to share. If you would like to just enjoy everybody else's poetry, though, which I know I'm going to, just sit back right where you are because that's the best place to watch it. Whatever stream you're watching now, because you get to see the poems too, and it's all seamless. So, join us or sit tight right where you are, and we'll be back with more poetry. All right, and we're back. Thanks for your patience. We've got our associate editor, prompt poems editor, and my wife, Katie Dozier, here to join us. Hey, Katie, how you doing?
Hey, I love that interview, although I'm mad at Zoom for canceling out the guitar.
I know. I really thought we had it figured out, but it is all the more reason to go check out the music directly. So.
Yeah, I'm really excited to personally. I am.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I am. I've tried my own hand at that very poorly, and it was an entertaining process. Maybe someday I'll have to bust out those old attempts. Yeah,
I've heard the story. I want to see it in person. I want the life experience someday. Of seeing you.
maybe. All right. So the prompt this week was to write a poem that includes a prank and ends with a question. So I think 2 contributions there. It was first April Fool's Day. Also, you saying that you don't like poems that end in questions.
Yeah,
so.
I want to be proven wrong. And it was seriously, once I said that, every poem I read ended in a question. So I thought, why not just embrace it and fully invite that?
All right.
What happens?
So how did you go about embracing it?
Well, since we're writing our Hyben chapbook this month, I can't process poems outside of the frame of being a Hyben. So it's a Hyben, but it's not, part of our book process. Just another bonus Hyben.
All right. Bonus Hyben coming up.
This is mostly for Lizzie, for my 8-year-old. Rickroll. I learned that not all forms of gaslighting burn when I clicked a hyperlink that skipped to a khaki-popped collar. A bait and switch, enjambment too, can feel like this. Make a volta volt high enough and it's Simone Biles to the stratosphere. And isn't all of this just a quest to land somewhere different than we've charted? To forget we only live for long enough to chalk the dreams of what we started, to hear music when we least expected. All of it a lesson? Your mom never gonna give you up.
So excellent news. And the funny thing is, I think to me, is that we saw the title was Rickroll, and then I forget about that by the time I get to the haiku.
Thank you. That was my entire goal. Okay. Thank you for saying that. That means a lot.
Well, I don't know. My memory, maybe, I don't know. But
I also kind of meant to say that I only realized when thinking of this whole thing that saying your mom is it was a 90s Rickroll, and I was obsessed with saying your mom, and now, I have friends, kids are like, my kid says your mom all the time, and I'm like, haha, I say your mom, even though, I'm kind of grown up.
Yeah, it's like the 80s, that's what she said.
I know, but I just do all of them, it turns out.
Well, yeah, great Hyben there.
Thanks.
There was a Rickroll by Katie Dozier. And
I also wanted to, when I shared it, share and actually Rickroll people, but I was like, that's too far, Katie, I can't can't do that, so I spare that. So anyway, sorry, I'm curious to see what you came up with.
Yeah, well, as you know, we have a crown of Hyben that we're doing, which is, and how that works, for those of you who are not familiar with the crown, which I don't know if other people have done a crown of Hyben actually, but what you do is you take the haiku at the end and then turn that into like the prose part of the next poem. So me and Katie have been going back and forth. We did this last April. The book was a hot pink moon, and it was really a lot of fun. We put it out as a book, and we're going to do the same thing this April. It's really fun to have like a need to write something.
Yeah, we're like 6 days in and already like, we should just do this for the whole year.
Yeah, it is. It's really fun.
It's really fun.
And and so I just really like it. You know, it's like, I don't know, it's a really good project, and I'm glad. I think it works best if it's like 1 month, but still. Anyway, so we're writing a lot of Hyben is the point, and I was trying to remember as I was talking what the words were. So Katie had a Hyben. Maybe I should pull up.
Yeah, you can show it if you.
Yeah, well, I should pull up our little document if I can. I don't even know if I can find it. Wait, how do I find it? Oh, this is great TV right here. Well,
I want to say too, with the words of the haiku, it's not like you don't like then turn that haiku into a summary in the prose section. It's just the words. And my goal on the words is to always take Tim's haiku and jump as far from it as possible, because I'm always looking for those ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean that's the fun part of doing like a crown like this with is a collaborative thing. And last spring we had the collaboration issue of Rattle, and that was kind of one of the reasons why we thought, hey, let's try to make a fun way to collaborate. So anyway, so this was Katie's haiku on poem on day 3, or Hyben on day 3, and I'll just read her haiku at the end. Behind every frame, curation. With the brackets under every frame, so it's kind of you have to see it to believe it. But and so I had to use words behind every frame, curation. Also, I was trying to think in the back of my head. Well, I'm gonna write toward the prompt too, and so I was thinking like, how could I go there? And I don't know. The fun thing is to go somewhere completely different. So she went with curation, I went with this. Try to do the prompt at the same time, and here we go. This is mine. This is a sudden loosening of choice. The word curation shares its root with to cure, and so a curator is a guardian of the sick from the wealth of the world. How we marvel as our words drag the clattering frames of their origins behind them. Whiskey is the water of life, mortgage a death vow, the prance of a prank. In 1762, the 4th Earl of Sandwich needed a way to eat without leaving the gambling table, but now we prefer the thin blade of an omelet for lunch. What a tragedy we found, what a goat song, but every disaster has its star, and who would smash a fiasco? This feeling overabundance. So lots going on there. It's a lot of those are fascinating etymologies. I love etymologies, and so it's fun to pull up some fun ones.
Well, I love it when you're really enjoying a poem, and then after you're like, "Hey, I learned something too."
Oh, there you go.
It's a very exciting moment.
That's part of the fun of this project too. Well, anyway, that was my prompt poem and the day 4 of our little project poem too.
I also just wanted to mention. So I know that the rejections has been sent and everything from
declines. You mean?
I'm sorry.
You don't use the word.
They feel like rejections when you get them. I know. So I'm using the real word for everybody. But anyway, they've been sent. But we're gonna do that next week. But suffice it to say, really, really amazing poems last month. Like I was really thrilled. I got it down to the top 10 or something. I was reading them over and over again, and really just like had to spend I'm so glad it was so hard. So
and I guess we say the winner couldn't be here today.
Oh, that's a spoiler. I didn't know if you were going to do that.
Yeah, well, we might as well say it. So the winner is
okay. It's not because I didn't decide. I'll say that much. Like I didn't.
And so we figured we'd do it next week when that person could.
But thanks for writing such excellent poems last month. Really, they were really I think it was the best month.
Yeah. She was reading me a lot of them.
Yeah, I was like, I got to read you this poem.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway. Okay. So let's see. So let's go first to Christiana Doucette. And remember, we've been babbling a long time. So the prompt.
I'm sorry.
No, it's my fault too. The prompt was, once again, write a poem that includes a prank and ends with a question, if you've forgotten in the process of all our babbling. Hey, Christiana. How you doing?
And mine is a little bit long, so I probably should jump in here.
Okay, great.
It barely fit on one page. So this is called Strip Search at the College Library. Like the shoemaker's mischievous library elves, we used to slip the strips into the ties left while the guys scanned library shelves. As they rushed out the door to class, knotting Windsors tight, there'd be a flash, lights, an alarm, a long arm lean over the desk. You taking a book? The recognition and a roll of eyes, a sigh. It's in the tie. I don't have time to look. They'd dash to class. Take it to the bank. They'd get us next time. Promise to surpass that prank and do it. Beware, next time they'd somehow hide their own strip in a shoe, dare to slide another into a backpack lining or along the binding of a notebook. But blast it all, where? You couldn't know until the next shift, lifting each item to the machine, waiting for a red light to turn green, inspecting jackets, corduroy or book with growing wrath and frantic look until at last the strip is found wrapped around the bottom of a water bottle. Then the full throttle sound of laughter. After, there's no knowing where one will turn up next. But then we happened upon the necktie the library director left lying on the circulation desk. No direct eye contact, but another pesky strip slid up the open gap. The moment earnestly awaited when he'll leave, held breath around if he'll perceive the trick, whispers of "watch" as he walks through the detector. He doesn't stick around long. He crams his hat down on his head and is sped out the door. No alarms? Disappointment disarms us. Was it a faulty strip or system? Either way, the prank victim was out the door without adding a score until later that day. One returns from the bank. Turns out the prank set off their alarms. Security descended on him, splendid badges flashing, briefly apprehended. We shrink back. Breath held as he returns. His face is stern. He wants to learn who bugged his tie. Our faces burn. We want to die with embarrassment until he breaks into merriment. His roars of laughter crash into the students' quiet studies. Come on, show me the hack, you fuddy-duddies. Who bugged my tie? Show me. Why? So I can get them back.
Oh, that's a great story. Sounds like a great teacher too. Strip search at the college library.
That's funny.
Yeah, really funny and great energy as always too. Thanks for sharing that,
Thanks.
Christiana.
True story.
Oh, that's great. All right, yeah, that was Christiana Doucette with Strip Search at the Library. Next, let's go to Hamid Malik.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hey, Hamid, how you doing?
Hi. Very well, thank you. I love this one. I had a lot of fun this week.
Oh, good.
I've got a little villanelle.
Oh, nice.
And I had been listening, I'll just tell you really quickly because it's short. I had been listening again to your villanelle episode on the poetry space, and I loved Anna Evans' galloping way of some of her villanelles sounded. So I sort of had that sound in my head while I was doing this.
Oh, very
Oh,
cool.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Pulling thistles into song. It's hard to learn to whistle. Your tongue and lips must sing together. Otherwise, it's artificial. A sound more wind than sizzle. Try a building site. It's better to learn from hard hats how to whistle. That's where you'll witness the official form. My husband once checked his zipper, a response unwisely artificial, to a chirper with a chisel, who from his scaffold sung his pleasure, as I leaned beside the whistle snatcher, who refashioned songs into thistles in my mouth. My tongue and lips pinned together, I muttered cries, it's artificial. Pulling thorns can make you snivel, but when you're done, you're back to feather. And in the wild, you know your whistle. Ask, could I rise from artificial?
Yeah, that was wonderful. I love all the slant rhymes.
Yeah.
Just the sizzle to whistle to official.
Yeah, I know, and I'm really surprised there's so many words that slant rhyme with whistle too. Like, like wow. I mean, it should be a musical word, right? Like,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. Well, Fun Pump, thanks so much for sharing
Thanks.
that. Yeah, Hamid. Thanks, Hamid.
Thanks.
Is Hamid Malik with Pulling Thistles into Song. Yeah, this is going to be a fun prompt. I kind of hadn't occurred to me because maybe I'm not like a prankster
You're not really. Although you
really.
did pull the best prank that's ever been pulled on me in my life.
Really? What was that?
Last April Fool's Day.
I don't remember.
I said like, nobody's ever really pranked me. I really want to be pranked.
God, I have no recollection.
And so,
of this.
okay,
I have
well,
no
you'll
idea where you're
remember
going.
when.
Okay.
And so Tim's like, Katie, there's a mouse in the house.
Oh, that's right.
And I was like, oh no, really? I was like, I'll help you. We'll get it. So he's like, we need a bucket. And I was like, okay, we'll get a bucket. And we go in there with the thing. But then we get down in the kitchen and I start taking it like really seriously, like this plan that we're hatching. And then Tim's just like, come here, Katie. And he pulls up the bucket and there's a computer mouse.
Yeah. And Lizzie got so into
Yeah,
it.
she
That's
got
why.
so
She
into
really-
it. She screamed. I forgot. She screamed at the top of her lungs. So like, I really bought it. And then I was like, wow, you should really be an actress. That was scary good. Like I really bought that.
Yeah, she was the key to it, though. Was that
She was.
she really acted frightened. So
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, yeah, that's a good memory. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, but this is a fun prompt. Is my point. I like that. I hear in these
Oh,
stories.
good.
Let's go next to Kimberly Gibson Tran.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hey, Kimberly, how you doing?
Very good, very good. Yeah, I have a little poem about my dad, who was the prankster in our family, as dads often are. So my poem is called Lion. Mufasa is so big and Simba so small as he slides down his dad's capacious mane. My dad's laugh could echo deep as James Earl Jones. How he'd roar when Katie and I poured icy cups of water over the wall of his shower. A trick, of course, we nicked from him. Our shrieks when he chased us with a gecko caught in his hands. All those taking turns on his broad back, tossed across the waterbed. On Animal Planet, I love how even a real-life lion king lets cubs tug at his ears, pretending pains from their milk teeth. I think this is a form of protection. I won't picture the ravine, the cliffs of the EKG, what brought down our granddad, a heart attack. I hate the steady stampede of time, the inevitable fall of kings. Still, his playing with words, corking the scare into comedy, a silly smirk. Home from the hospital, he worked up a tail tall as savanna grass and asked, would I be lying to you?
Oh, that's such a sweet poem,
What a sweet
Kate.
poem. Yeah, that really is. Aw. Aw, that's
Yeah, I love that.
great. Wow.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Kimberly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kimberly Gibson Tran with Lion. Let's go to Jeff Stumpo next.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Hi.
Jeff, great to see you.
I'll just jump into this. I too wrote an irreverent high button,
Nice.
so I hope you do not hate it. Through and on the other side, blessing. A long time ago, sad, lonely Siobhan coursed across old Mav's path as the witch wandered here and there, and the lass caught a curse that withered her hair. Years she went about looking like a bird's nest the bird had abandoned partway through making. But Mav had no love left to lose with the folk, and they themselves had had their thirst slaked as Siobhan's cows on many a song-filled night, and so the fair ones came to her and gave her a pair of silver scissors. Whatever you cut with these grows longer, they sang in a language she did not speak but fully understood. Siobhan took to cutting her hair, and in no time her locks ran to the small of her back. The next day, as she went to town, the prince caught sight of her and flew head over heels. He spoke to the king and said their descendants would all be beautiful if only he married the woman with the perfect hair. And his father, given as he was to trust in love, gave also his blessing, and Siobhan said yes, and she set about cutting a train for her dress that by the day of the wedding they say wrapped nearly around the church. That night they retired to the honeymoon chambers. Siobhan crept into bed with her silver scissors and her explanations ready, and even today all the old women cross themselves, and sweat forms on their foreheads, and their breath catches just a little longer than their long-gone husbands would have liked, and they say from then on after she was the happiest woman to ever live. If we knew we'd always rise higher, how many times more would we ask to be cursed?
Oh, what an interesting, use of like story and then moral of the story for the
Yeah,
haiku.
yeah, I've never seen it done like that. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I like that,
Thanks.
Jeff. Thanks for sharing
Thanks.
Thanks, y'all.
it. Yeah, it was Jeff Stumpo with Through and Through and On the Other Side, Blessing.
Also makes me want to watch The Princess Bride.
Yeah. Well, we watched it recently. Or were you not
You
there?
watched it.
Sorry.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like with Joe and Colin,
Yeah.
not by yourself.
I'd watch it by myself. It's a great
I'd be
movie.
mad at you if you watched it by
Yes, that's
yourself.
true.
It's the problem.
Yeah, it's got Brian O'Sullivan next.
Hello.
Hey,
Brian.
Brian. Great to see you.
Hey, it's great to be here. So I was having trouble thinking of a good prank idea, and then I went back to the characters from my small talk poem from last month, Small Talk at the Pearly Gates.
Great.
And the result is a very blasphemous poem, but it's meant in good fun. It's called The Book of Job Uncensored. The Lord of Hosts guffawed and thunderstruck the mortal plain. Seest thou the look upon his fucking face? God inquired of Lucifer, who chuckled politely. When his family died or when his crops were blighted, Lucifer asked. Either one. It was priceless. We drove him to the very edge of despair, and now in our love we'll raise him up again. Get him out here, Lucifer. The light bearer set down his beer. Job, you righteous man, come on down and see what you've won. And Job came down. What the hell? Asked this humble man. When my life crumbled, was it all some practical joke? Is that how you get your yucks? The Lord frowned. How can you understand? Sorry. How can you understand? Can you take the great Leviathan in hand and bend him to your will? Hell no, said Job, still quivering with rage. I know naught but what I've read upon your pages, and none of it explains to me the joke behind these divinely diabolical strokes of faith. There was silence then, and God's response never reached the mortal pen. What do you think he said?
That's almost a Rick roll of it.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of Brian thing. But Brian, you seem like you would be a prankster to me too, because you're witty
Really?
and funny. Yeah, you do. Like I could see it. Why not
Maybe I'll
start?
start.
Yeah, exactly. Start with your cats, you know?
You'll be to blame.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Always fun. Yeah, take care. As Brian O'Sullivan with the Book of Job Uncensored. I always was looking for that version. Okay.
The uncensored,
Yeah.
the editor's cut.
All right, let's go to Chelsea McClellan next.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi, Chelsea.
Great to see you.
Great to see you all too. So as any gardener will tell you, there are a handful of vegetables that like to play pranks on us. Two that come to mind are asparagus and cucumbers, which if you look the wrong way for 30 seconds will go from small to way too large to eat. And another one is one of a popular new favorite, zucchini, that is also turns into a winter squash pumpkin. And it's called a zucchini. So it's called a zucchino rampicante.
Okay.
The seedlings' two broad leaves spring up at night. They swing dance with the roots through dirt, sent out to spin a while in the morning's height, to grab by tendril all they've been endowed, but envying the sun, they dress in yellow and stars, seducing honeybees and moths, until biology receives the memo and fruits. The head-sized leaves explore the swaths of open land the gardener cleared in May, until the green-striped summer squash are gone from sight. And while growing under cover, make the gardener's same mistake, to stare at the lawn and miss the night. The large, stiff pumpkins grew. The dry vines asking now of time. Who knew?
And some great photos there. It's
Yeah.
definitely worth looking at if you are only listening to the audio version. Thanks so much for sharing that, Chelsea. Great
Thanks.
haiku. Yeah, wonderful last line too.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was that was Chelsea McClellan with. Can you say it for me? Zucchino
No.
rampicante.
I could eat it, but not say it.
We're going with zucchino rampicante.
That sounded good.
Okay. All right, and let's go to Nate Jacob next.
Hey, good evening, friends.
Hey, Nate.
Hey, Nate, how you doing?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Yeah,
I I got a pretty long one, so I'll go ahead and start right
Okay.
on. No chit chat. No good times, okay? This one's titled Wandering the Desert for 40 Years, Not Entirely Lost. There's some big biblical allusions here. One of it is from Psalm 42. These things I remember as I pour out my soul. Helena, as a child, colors everything. The coyote howls in the creek crossing, the old ranch well running dry in summer, and the sharing of bathwater and flushes, wheat chaff prickling all the sweaty creases, and cousins sleeping in rows on the floor, while the adults huddled on porches and in the kitchen, and the 2 bedrooms of a farmhouse life that was so big to a boy and is so small to a forgetful adult. And maybe it is just me, but that mess, like so many other messes I've survived, was heaven on earth for this child. So let me live in peace in the present, but let me find that every ancient moment has been singular and free and perfect. And please, let me go on like this forever, even in ignorance if I am in error, because all I can think about now is how nice it would be to go back, to sit on the dust-threaded floor and watch young crazy Uncle Reed pulling the end of his thumb off over and over, slower and slower. It was real. I touched the broken off tip, still warm and wriggling in his grip, while he said things I could barely understand in the voice of Donald Duck. And I was safe, and everything was everything. And everything was mine in that moment. Had I any idea in the moment of it all, would I have hoisted it in pride above my head, thrown it over my shoulder like some dead weight, or dragged it across the big sky badlands, whether it wanted to come along or not, so that adult me would remember, would keep? Is it by some cruel design that time's turning colors my every memory in gold, like Midas, leafing his way through crumbling scrapbooks, turning tiny events into the golden calves I'd sell my remembering soul to go back to?
Oh, that was great.
Metaphor at the end with Midas. That was really nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Nate. And
Yeah,
again, another
thanks.
fun one too. I love when he pulled out the visual effect too. That was
Yeah, that was, and you were very proud of yourself as you did it too. I could tell.
Have you guys done this? The
No, I
kids
don't-
love it.
Oh my
Look at
god,
that.
I don't know how to do it. I can't
It's
do
real.
it. I've been trying to do it ever since.
Look at that.
Ah, it looks so real. I can't look. Okay, I gotta figure that out.
yeah.
right.
We'll work.
That's
We'll
true
work on it
magic.
after the show.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Nate.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Nate. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Nate. Take care.
You bet.
Yeah, it was Nate Jacob with Wandering the Desert for 40 Years. Not entirely lost. Yeah.
Well, what he was doing was learning how to do that trick clearly for 40 years.
A lot of movement in that poem, though. It really did a lot of different things, a lot of
that's it.
emotions.
Not in
yeah.
quatrains like Nate often writes, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Let's go to Danica Dinsmore next. Hey, Danica, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Do you have the photo?
I do. Yeah, someone tell. You tell.
You
tell
tell,
it.
you tell.
Katie can tell it.
Okay, I'll tell it. So we were going to the Yes Yes Books reading at AWP. So we were at AWP for about 5 minutes. We never actually went into the conference. We were like in axillary building.
Yeah, I don't go to AWP. but
No,
that's
okay.
a separate
It's very
story.
okay. That's a separate story. Anyway, so we're in this funky like art gallery bathroom and coming out, and we hear a voice that recognizes us, and then realized we were in the presence of Donica, which is so much fun to get to meet you in person. I was saying it was like my favorite accidental run in a bathroom with someone of my whole life because it was so joyous, and we only had like...
I hope it's a small list.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I'm wearing the same dress in the photo.
And I'm wearing the same shirt. Because it was exactly
They're real.
like...
They exist outside of this square that we see them in, and they're lovely. And it was my also favorite run-in outside of a bathroom ever. What a surprise! I wasn't even at the same reading. I was at a different reading.
Yeah, that was so wild.
Yeah,
it really
yeah.
was. It was so wonderful to get to give you a hug in person. It really was special.
Yeah, and here's the
And
photo.
a little
so
surreal.
Here's the
further
photo
ado-
when we're wearing
you
the
literally
same
have
thing.
it with you.
We do.
Oh,
Yeah,
God,
it's
I'm not
right
looking
here
at
on
the
the
same
screen.
thing.
You can't see it
Oh
on the
my
Zoom,
God.
So you
Danica,
can
but
see
there
we're
we
in a
are.
cool
Oh, can't see it on the
venue.
Zoom. Okay, I'll have to go back and watch it on the.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
really interesting space that they had these readings in. It's a repurposed sort of warehoused into an art gallery thing with a really nice. So
Yeah.
great reading too. Julia Kolchinsky was there, and as well as Nancy Miller Gomez. That's why we were going because some rattlers were there.
Yep, they were.
So it was really fun.
And I was at a
Great-
solar punk reading with Solar Punk and Reckoning magazine.
Yeah, well, very cool. It was
So
really
I
fun
should
to
get
run
going.
into.
Oh, sorry. It was lovely. It was an amazing surprise. Actually, it was one of my highlights of the whole thing. I was like, I
Aw.
got to meet
Well, us too,
Us
really.
too, definitely. It really was. It was just so nice to get to connect in person. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So leave it to me to take a prank poem and turn it into something really somber and serious. So this is something I have not been able to write about for 20 years. I've been thinking about, especially lately, how often people have risked, how much they've risked by standing up for justice and standing up for other people, and even, just that amount of risk that people are willing to take. And I just want to say that the film that I reference is called Scared Sacred by Velcro Ripper. And that when I saw this film, I had absolutely no idea how it opened. Okay. So it could be called Death Records or Death Records. Vancouver Film Festival 2005, sold out show, front row, screen so big it's my whole wide world. Opens with handheld camera view, 2 shots heard, no word from documentarian, just a fall, us and camera all together, dying with Bradwell. I knew Brad as a trickster, the young man who helped me plan a way to avoid trouble when a poet teacher at Naropa told the class, let's all drop acid and write poetry in the grass. As one groom of 2 who we filed behind to stage a gay wedding at CU, where Promise Keepers' cheers echoed like Hitler hails while we read poetry downwind. Brad staged tossed food buffets to eschew the waste of capitalism while hunger grew in the bellies of buildings he climbed to save when the wrecking balls came through squatters' homes rebuilt by many hands making light work. Protested the destruction of life, injustice, greed, picked up a film camera, headed south to witness inhumanity, a teacher strike, anarchy. Rolling Stone called him a folk song, a murder ballad, leaping across taxicabs to get away from the cops, 2 fists in the sky, until martyred, pixeled, projected back to me, I choke, heart broke, images immortalized. Heart big as a sun, wrapped in good trouble, all action, all passion, all kind, all love. I ask myself in our dark time if I will, like Brad, be willing to face bullets or turn forward into the oncoming storm.
Yeah, really interesting poem in memory there.
Yeah,
Danica, thanks for
big
sharing
question
that.
to end on for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That was Danica Dinsmore with Death Records or Death Records.
Yeah. Like a high bunny cut right there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's go next to Jared Campbell.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
Jared.
Jared.
Great to see you.
So I did Pig 3. For almost 5 years, I'd been a high school principal, and Foolish as I was, I thought I'd seen it all. One afternoon in May, I was meeting with a bigwig from the county when we heard Miss Kimball screaming, "Pig!" I ran out of my office and in the tiled hallway spied a huge greased pig with 2 emblazoned boldly on its side. We evacuated everyone from school. Nowadays, parents get litigious when kids are hurt by porcine strays. The students safe, I built a team to apprehend the swine. Myself, 2 guidance counselors, and the physics guy had spine enough to volunteer. The football coaches, truth be told, who also teach pre-calculus, all had to be cajoled. I'll spare you all the details. I don't want to be a bore. In 30 minutes, we had caught pigs 1 and 2 and 4. We looked in every classroom. We ran up and down the stairs. We scoured every hallway. Pig 3 wasn't anywhere. We searched the school another hour. There didn't seem to be a single earthly evidence of specter-like Pig 3. The fog of my delusion cleared as sudden as a stroke. There never was a pig marked 3, I saw, and that's the joke. Pursue the things you want from life, but choose them well. Because no matter how you work, you'll never find what never was. In years of teaching and administration, I've addressed so many questions. How do you connect with students, best evaluate their learning, help them be what they can be? One question haunts me to this day. Where is Pig 3?
That is so fun. Thanks so much for sharing.
What a great delivery. I don't understand how you don't start laughing. Like, it's so funny, Jared. Your delivery adds a lot as well. It's great.
It really does. The straight-faced humor of it all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It was Jared Campbell with Pig 3. Yeah, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like that should be like, it should become a cliche. Like, where is Pig 3?
It should.
Like, it should have, like, it should.
If there's any justice in this world,
yes.
we will all refer to Pig 3 from now on. Okay. Let's go to Mike Bales next.
Good evening.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Pretty good. I just finished the haiku in the Rattle. They're pretty good. 2 especially stood out to me. It's nice to have it's not a familiar form to me. It's nice to have a whole bunch of them in front of me.
Yeah, a lot of variety in there too, and it is such a great form. Plus with the Lou Watts interview, you know, there's so much to learn about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before this year, I probably thought haikus were just, haibun where it was just, the prose piece and the haiku at the end. I didn't know, or maybe, a couple of years now, just learning it can have so many forms to it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to leave it to Rattlecast. He got me confessing all kinds of things. I ought to be protected. It's been 50 years since high school. I sent you the poem. It's called Cruising. It's after Gwendolyn Brooks. We cruise one-ways. We shout at girls. We pass streetlights. We follow stars. We go to a quiet street on the West End. We plant a dummy like a body in a ditch. We watch cars veer toward it, then back onto the road. We laugh. We do it again. One friend's younger brother died in a car wreck on a county road. It's a passage we bear. We carry on. Now it's spring. We savor time together. We are high school seniors. We sit in a parking lot, our engines running. We wonder where to go next.
Yeah, what a heartbreaking turn in that one. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing
Thank
that.
Thanks.
It got me close to this one family when I went to all the stuff for the son who died. And we were close for years.
Yeah.
Sad way to get close to someone.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that memory, Mike.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it was Mike Bales with Cruising. We'll go to Beth
What's happening?
We can hear you.
Did our headphones?
Okay. Can you see
this
me?
is frozen too.
Okay.
Yes, I can see you.
Hang on, everybody. We're having some technical
Okay.
issues. Okay, wait. Why is default speakers
Should I
right
just?
here? Hang on, everybody.
I see you.
Yeah, you see us. Okay. Well, we are frozen. So hey, Beth, just give us 1 second. We'll try to unfreeze.
Sure.
So what did you share? We can talk to you while I try to fix this somehow.
Okay. Should I just read my poem or?
Yeah. Well, what did you have? How did you approach this topic?
Well, I was really so I am I couldn't think of anything, and then until this morning I remembered a friend of mine telling me this story about 25 years ago, and I was just horrified at what she told me she had done. And I'm not a prankster, and I was just like, oh my God, I would never do something like that. But and then suddenly I just wrote this poem in about, I don't know, 5 minutes, and was surprised at the ending. At the ending that I came up with, but it just seemed like that was how it should end. So I don't know. I guess I just want to say that I really appreciate everybody and being able to read with such amazing poets, and just I learn something every time, and I feel kind of discouraged and like, oh, I should never write another poem again because I'll never be as as talented as everybody else. But then you come up with these prompts and I can't resist them, and I just makes me want to try again. So it's been really fun.
Well, I think that's wonderful, Beth. And what you were just saying about your experience in writing this poem, I mean, that's why I love to write poems. So I think we're all on the same page there. We all just love writing poems and trying to do our best.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
it really, I mean, if I didn't have the Rattlecast, I'd be joining the Rattlecast.
It's true. We just happen to be here.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
I mean, poetry groups and reading groups have been lifelines to me, and over decades. So it's I just appreciate having one.
Yeah,
having this
well,
one.
it's so worthwhile to do. It
Yeah.
really is. Just for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, should I
Yeah,
do
go
it?
ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Mhm. And we
All
fixed
right.
everything. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was
All
us,
right.
not you.
Yeah. Like we lost. I don't know. It was almost like power cut out.
It
for a
was
minute
very
or
odd,
something.
but
We
we're
lost-
back now.
Yeah,
So
anyway, let's
thank
not talk
you.
about it. Okay.
Okay. All right. This is called Dead Trout. You had keys to his car, a dead trout, and a broken heart. Why wouldn't you just lock it all in?
Wow.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I mean, so point. It was in such a tight space.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I should explain that she locked the trout in the car. He went away for 2 weeks and came back, and the car was not a pleasant
No,
odor for
definitely.
I can
experience.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that from the poem, except for the 2 weeks. That really thickens the plot there, too. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
that, Beth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's Beth Heller with a dead trout. Yeah. All right. And next, let's go to Carla Schwartz.
Nope.
Oh, we can't hear. Yep. Need your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
We hear you now.
Yep.
Oh, hi,
Okay.
Carla.
Hi.
Great. Hi, great to be here. Fantastic night. I'm really appreciating everything everybody's been doing. I also write a haibin, so I feel good that my question gets followed by something like a haiku, just like Katie's.
Yeah, that's
And,
okay. I decided.
because I'm not such a prankster either, this is kind of like a promise that doesn't really get kept, I guess. And so, but it is a prank in that sense, it takes away from what it's supposed to be. So it's called Our Pet Name for You is Mr. Clean. I cleaned up for you, knowing you'd come home this week. I dragged your car out of the garage, ran down to the basement to flip the cock, screwed the best spritzer we have to the end of the hose, returned to the back of the house to open the spigot, then back to the front to hose down your car, sitting for more than a month now, brining in winter's salt. I washed it like I wash from me all the worry and want, moldering since you left. Then I pulled out the vacuum hose and sucked the sand from the garage. I wish. The best laid intentions. But then I stopped to write this. Where has the time disappeared to? Am I April's fool? Cleaning people, on vacation, whole house vacuum.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Our pet name for you is
Very
Mr. Clean.
interesting,
Yeah,
yeah.
it definitely is. Good storytelling.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing
Thank
that,
you.
Carla.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And Carla Schwartz with our pet name for you is Mr. Clean. All right, let's go next to Amanda Harris.
All right. So, like a lot of the people here, I messed around with the idea of the high bun, and it just felt very real and very natural to me.
Great.
Yeah. Also, I, for a couple of years, kind of went between being a musician and being a writer, so it was really cool to hear that rattle talk.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
All right, Saturday morning. Saturday morning, woke up with my head in a toilet. Water imitates a foul being. Innocence belongs to the weak and docile. Mom says pranks are a hole in the mouth. A spine rebelling against the dead. Mirrors spell my broken country. On the news, I hear a homeless boy fighting with his diaphragm for air. I empathize with his spirit. Lungs are flawed beings. They crumple like fists in the face of adversity. Vomit depurates. Water breaks the chest. What are we if not damned?
Well, that's an interesting one. Yeah, thanks so much for
Yeah,
sharing
thank
that,
you.
Amanda.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was Amanda Harris with Saturday Morning. A few poets are left. Let's go to Tita Denaclaw.
I just have to finish my note for, well, I love Amanda's work.
Oh, you were leaving a sweet note for Amanda. That's a great reason.
Yeah, I was trying not to say half a note now because I'm always late trying to finish my notes. So I forgot, or I never even saw that there was supposed to be an ending with a question. So I really quick did my ending, and then I thought, oh no, because I'll totally cry because I'd already practiced not crying. But anyway, it's we'll see how surprised people are about this. Okay, so I'm just gonna go. Launchpad. Days before our wedding, both sets of parents came to visit. He went with his, I went with mine. We all ended up at the same retail store. My betrothed had not seen us. He was standing a few feet from his father, near the entrance, no interest in shopping. His father saw me sneaking up behind his son. I smiled and placed one finger on my lips. His father raised his eyebrows, curious to see what was afoot. I placed my hand, high thigh, inside my lover's legs. Oh, oh, oh! My beloved's feet left the ground. As he leaned back with his hand on my forearm, trying to move away, but the railing stopped him. He still didn't know it was me. He was alarmed. I laughed so hard. Then so did he. His dad voiced a chuckle that I came to love. Huh. Dad turned away to give his son a bit of time to recover. English was not Dad's first language. I knew no Navajo to start. Ever since he saw me send his very serious son to the ceiling, humor became our shared language. So few words needed. Mostly, it was me teasing Dad with glistening, expectant eyes, Dad raising his eyebrows as he listened, then our laughing together, full of fondness and ease. I miss him so much.
Oh, yeah, sweet poem, and I love that chuckle too.
Yeah, that was great.
So, I asked, there was another prank that I actually wrote to begin with, and Wolfer said, no. And then, so I said, but are you sure? And he says, if you didn't do things like that, something would have been missing. So it is Navajo humor, and you know, it's how you keep him from having a big head, right? No, we enjoy. This is my family's. This is what we do.
Oh, well, thanks, Tina.
Thank
Yeah, I love
you.
that story.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was Tina Dennettclaw with Launchpad. I like the title too. All right, let's go to last but not least on the Zoom is Dick Westheimer.
I've heard of him.
I have heard of that guy too. Hey, Dick.
Been here before.
You have. Hey.
What I keep saying this week after week, this was a really hard prompt. This one actually stirred like weird psychological toxic crap in me with
I feel I should apologize.
Yeah, you don't need to apologize because
Excavated, so
excavated sounds better.
There's healing.
Yeah, activated. Thank you, Tim. I mean, what it I thought I kind of ruminated about it is like, do I respond to pranks like this? Some sort of like residual anxiety from being picked on or something like that. Or is it who knows? But one of the things I did was I started reading about the history of April Fool's Day. It's amazing. It is all over the fucking world. It is like people this day through the last 400 or 500 years is documented as a Fool's Day back to Chaucer.
Wow.
Did you read the Wikipedia page that's like a list of pranks? I found that page to be fascinating. I didn't end up using any of them, but I learned.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, it was a great page.
Only to identify which ones over the last 45 years my wife has played on me, because for some reason she has found that she just loves playing April Fool's jokes on everybody. So I consider that a flaw. She considers that a superpower. So anyway, I finally sort of found a way in, and it's always amazing how poetry sort of works in. You can struggle over something and then, it snaps into place.
Yeah.
So here we go. Translating pranks back into poems. The etymological root of prank is much like prance, to strut or to dance. And why, I ask my wife, do you like these little cruelties of raisins in my toothpaste and marbles in my shoes? All because the calendar turns to April, when I'm already fooled by the weather, acting as if the season has become spring, as if spring itself is not enough of a prank, a dance, a prancing around in a skimpy dress, bared shoulders and thighs, covered quick by a woolen coat. See, the trees leaf out, then wish, as a late snow and freeze pranks us all, that they could pull their buds back in. So isn't it a sufficiently foolish April day, without cellophane draped over the toilet seat, a short-sheeted bed, a man a bit weary about being misled?
Yeah, very nice. They got great storytelling again, and great ending.
Yeah.
Is that why? Is it because of the weather and the buds and things that it's
Oh,
April?
I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't read, but it seems like there's some sort of Rumspringa, some sort of like letting it all loose, in the Jewish calendar, the sort of the spring holiday that overlaps is Purim, where everybody is like, it's a costume sort of like tricking people and not exactly tricking people, but it has that same sense of nonsense and pushing boundaries. And I'm sure it has something to do with like unloosing one's woolens and bearing one's skin or one's sense of mischief, and you can finally do it because life is a little bit less serious than keeping warm and fed in the wintertime. Just a guess.
Yeah, well, Tina Dennettclaw says it's because the change from the Julian to the Georgian calendar. That's an interesting thing too.
There was some speculation on that, but it turns out that this predates that turn. So there was historians sort of pegged that, and then they saw, oh no, this goes on before that, before there was ever the turn to that calendar.
Well, that's really interesting. A lot of
That is
stuff I didn't know.
interesting. Yeah, when I was little, I thought it was in honor of my grandfather's birthday because his birthday it was April 1st, and I love that because I get to like every April 1st, I think back to him, and he was actually a very serious person. He was a doctor and everything, but we would bond over like screwball comedies when I was little, so I always think of him.
I had no idea. That's
my middle son was born on April 1st, which
that's fun.
So we have. I guess that's fun for some people. That's what I hear. That's
I'm
what
sure Tab loves that.
I am led to understand that pranks are fun.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Dick. Yeah. So much fun as always. Yep. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
It was Dick Westheimer translating pranks back into poems.
Won't be playing a prank on him anytime soon.
No.
I'll tell you that.
All right. So that's going to wrap up the Zoom. Let's see what else we have. Let's see. Let's go to Ted Guevara's poem. And as always, Ted's got a photo with it. Let's see. And the photo is some women jogging in the forest. Okay. We'll see what that has to do with anything. Let me fix this too. Okay. And then Ted's poem is this. Amana. Spoke incredibly clear did my sister Enora. So she had been the one committed to my then idea. There were 3 wives in the block named Amanda. We called each one and asked if their Amana was running. A harmless joy to past in boring Indiana. Enora was hesitant at first, but let go of her pet Chia when she found ease in her voice past her dyspnea.
I don't know.
Okay. A fun challenge over the line it was, a formula. In a snap of hilarity, we called all 3 named Amanda and asked if their fridges were still going buzza buzza. If so, you'd better find your track shoes, claimed Enora, and catch them in a hurry. Enora was a natural in her aura. We darted to the window to maybe see one Amanda. We knew all their numbers through mother and friends of heard ya, 1, 2, 3. We laughed our asses off of our blah. We are seeing this, or are we seeing this? All Amandas looking for their lost Amana. So Amana is a type of fridge.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, like a brand. So there you go. So that's funny. Thanks for sharing that.
I did not understand that was a type of fridge. I'm sorry. I'm learning.
Right. Yeah, well, and then the photo makes sense now too because they're
running. Yes.
They're
okay,
running
I'm
after their
sorry. A little slow this evening. I apologize.
Well, it
I
is.
didn't know
It's late into the episode. It's
Yeah.
late. It's late. Don't worry about it. Okay. And I saw Nivy sent something too. Let's read Nivy's as well. A really short one. Here's a prank that ends with a question from Nivy. The gift-wrapped box. She handed it to me, red ribbon, gold foil, grinning like a magician mid-trick. I peeled the tape, lifted the lid, and jumped. A cricket sprang out, legs a blur, on a birthday cake. Why did I laugh instead of scream? That's a good question, though, like the difference between...
Laughter
Yeah.
and that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for sharing. That was Nivy DeKarthik with the gift-wrapped box.
I think Nancy was here earlier, too.
Was Nancy?
When she said she was going to send one, I think.
Yeah, well, I read this notice she didn't want to share it, but maybe please disregard it. Why? But you think she would? The word disregard made me think.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think she.
She want to read? Okay,
I think so. She sent it in. So.
Well, you're on the line.
I hope so. Don't get mad at me, Nancy, if I was wrong. But with our policy, you can't read it next week. So
that's true. Okay, let's share it. Let's share it. This is Merry Pranksters. And this is Nancy Tinnell's poem. Merry Pranksters. We've seen those fun-loving pranksters, those life at the party, medieval court jesters, who make us laugh to command our attention. But Eddie was different, hints of darkness inside, this champion athlete, this coach's delight. Once he roamed through the building without a hall pass, found the public address system and spoke into the mic. Announced, Miss Theobald sucks, in every room and hall, received a 3-day suspension from school. There was no light in Eddie's eyes. Every gaze was a glare, piercing crowds like a laser when he took his place at bat, listening to his mother curse the umpire and shout his name, Go Eddie! Go Eddie, give him hell! In his 20s, he derailed, committed murder, went to prison. Oh, how this destroyed his coach, who stood before us weeping at our 10th class reunion, begging, Don't forget poor Eddie, he could have made it to the major leagues. First, there was silence, then a collective gasp. Eddie killed his parents, coach. How could he forget? Yeah, that's a really, tough memory. Yeah, thanks for sharing
really
that, Nancy.
Is. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. It was Merry Pranksters by Nancy Tinnell. All right. And that is going to wrap up the open lines now. And let's go to... How do we do now? Oh yeah, we do a coup, right?
You do your haiku.
Yeah, I do.
You're in love with calling it coup because you can't say saiku anymore.
I know. I miss saying haiku. I do like writing just regular haiku a little better than haiku.
Well, you've been writing some really great ones.
Well, thanks. Okay, so the coup for this week. What was it? Oh yeah. So it was when you weren't there, unfortunately, but we finally opened up the rock tumbler.
Oh wow, that was quite the event. We forgot about it for about 5 months.
About it for so long. Yeah, and so this is just a quick haiku based on that experience. I bought for Christmas. We got my son a rock tumbler, and it was really fun. We like going hiking, like finding cool rocks to tumble and
for Christmas
polish.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. Or a year and a
There was my 6 month comment. Sounds like I'm just bitter.
So anyway, we finally cracked this thing open, and this is the haiku.
Or how it went, so this is gonna I'll know what happened.
This is the coup. Rock tumbler, how quickly the shine evaporates. Because it's true. When you open up, if you never open it, you kind of have to know what it's like to open a rock tumbler to get this. But the first time when you open it, it's all wet. Mm-hmm. And like, oh wow, it's amazing. They're so shiny. Yeah. And then, especially in Wrightwood, where there's like 0% humidity every day, the water's just gone. And then, oh wait, it's not actually that shiny. No. And anyway, the double meaning.
Just keep them in a bowl of water.
Yeah, well, that'd work. The kids were happy though. They were. Okay. Anyway, that is the coup for the week. Rock tumbler, how quickly the shine evaporates. All right. Okay, and now the prompt for this week, Katie, is what?
All right, this week we are going to write a poem in which someone makes a mistake that leaves an impression, with the challenge being, trying to take impression in. It's a very intentional word choice to allow for a lot of interpretation.
Oh, an impression.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's going to be the prompt for next week. That's Katie's prompt. Write a poem in which someone makes a mistake that leaves an impression. Okay. And next week's guest on the Rattlecast is going to be Susan Brown. Now, Susan Brown is a repeat guest. She was wonderful about 200 episodes ago, and she has this new book, Monster Mash. And she's also been teaching classes in humor in poetry. And so I'm always interested in humor because it really makes makes my life better reading submissions, having some that are funny. So really fun to talk about that. And this new really book that's getting rave reviews, Monster Mash by Susan Brown. She's going to be our guest next week, Rattlecast 289. Once again, write a poem in which someone makes a mistake that leaves an impression is your prompt if you choose to go along with it. That's Sunday, April 13th, the regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great week in the meantime, and we'll talk to you later. Good night.
Good night.